And just to make it very simple, if you socially distanced and you wore a mask and you were smart, none of this would be a problem. It's all self-imposed. It's all self-imposed. If you didn't eat the cheesecake, you wouldn't have a weight problem. It's all self-imposed.
And for the millions of parents who want to know, are the schools going to open tomorrow in New York City?
That's the law. An orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
Oh, my goodness. So I would just say this. If I wasn't so afraid, Alice, that it wouldn't appear everywhere else in the world, my headline for the New York Post today, for the Boston Herald today, would be Cuom-Over. Thoughts?
Like a comb-over?
Exactly. But Cuomo is over. What you just heard there are some of the highlights of Governor Andrew Cuomo of New York finally exploding out of the...
He just lost it today.
Yes, exploding out of the veneer that he so successfully had, shielding him from who he really is and shielding us from who he really is I guess what I should say. Man, what a crazy... The guy, the master of the tempered, disciplined, sober press conferences exploded there today. It was crazy. Good for you. Who is the guy? Jimmy Vielkind, I guess is his name, from the Wall Street Journal, is the guy who first puts it to him. So what happened today is that we got a special alert, and maybe you did too, because I get alerts from CNN and Fox and AP and whatever, saying that school tomorrow in New York City is canceled. My goodness, that's a big thing. That's a big thing. So you'd think that there's 1 million school children in New York City, in Manhattan. That's a lot of school kids. So you'd think that maybe the governor might have some information on this.
You would assume.
And reporters, by the way, we're going to talk to, after this, somebody who was not going to speak publicly about her own battle with COVID, but who was so incensed by some of the stuff Andrew Cuomo said that she said, screw it, and she's going to jump on in a bit. And you know her. Her name is Jaclyn Cashman. And she has been sucking now for like 6 weeks with COVID. Her life has been terrible. I've been texting back and forth. She's been in total hell. She'll tell you a little bit about it. But Cuomo today, that's all gone. All the stuff about that, about the love gov and having a what was that called? The Cuomo. Oh, there were Cuomo-sexuals. Those were people in love with Andrew Cuomo, and you can be man, woman, or anything else.
The speculation about his nipple rings potentially.
That's all over. The chances of him getting a gig with the administration, maybe, possibly, but I think he's just generally about over. This was not a good situation here. We'll start with the reporter's question, simply asking the governor if there's school tomorrow.
Today you said, well, I might have to impose an orange zone and I might have to close the schools, which an orange zone does. So what's going on? Does the city still have the ability to close its schools? Are you now taking control and saying that you have the power to make this decision? And for the millions of parents who want to know, are the schools going to open tomorrow in New York City?
So what you have is de Blasio closing the schools, Cuomo suggesting earlier in the day that, or not earlier in the day, suggesting earlier this year, and ongoing, that the state decides what closes and what doesn't. So this should be a simple question,
right,
for the parents, the millions of parents. That's Jimmy Vielkind of the Wall Street Journal who asked a very good question.
All right. First of all, let's try not to be obnoxious and offensive.
Here we go.
In your tone. Because you're 100% wrong. These laws have all been in effect for months.
Talking about Jimmy Vielkind's tone. Listen to the tone on this guy right here. I don't know if that's pure...
Unbelievable.
The pure insanity magma rolling out of his brain, or it was a multiple martini lunch. But this is a bleep-eating, venomous tone from the governor, and it's going to change in a moment.
I've always said we set initial parameters.
Is this like Voldemort or one of those at the end of the thing when they've got everybody tied up and they're about to smite him for good?
I don't know, but like you said, the 3 martini lunch, that was my first time. I'm like, was he out day drinking? Like, why is he just so, like, inexplicably furious with everyone here? Like, it's so weird.
And if you were to, with your loved one, if you were to say, I don't know if you seem to understand, or how many times I'm going to say it to you, you would realize that you're married to a psycho and grab the kids, get the car going, the hell out of there.
And then the school district picked a percent within those parameters. New York City picked 3%. We announced the orange zone law over a month ago. I don't know if you were here or if
Law's a one-syllable word. It needn't last 4 seconds.
you were paying attention. But that has been in effect for over a month. It always said, if by the state's numbers you hit 3%, the schools close.
Did he major in condescension in college?
Why do I feel like I'm being threatened just
I know.
listening to this?
Is he slowly approaching
I'm
the guy with
sorry.
the bat? Is the guy handcuffed with his hands behind his back in this chair? Is he walking towards him?
What's going on here
Okay.
is nothing that the law hasn't said for over a month. We then had the test out procedure.
You know, this is a public press conference. This is not an execution, we don't think. Anyway, Jesus.
If you were paying attention, you would have known we closed the schools in New York City 2 weeks ago. Remember when we did an orange zone and a red zone in Brooklyn and Queens?
Now put the lotion in the basket, Jimmy Vielkind.
When we closed the schools? Don't you remember that? Okay, so so what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're now going to override. We did it already.
Huh?
That's the law, an orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
All right, so obviously we're
Wait, do you
dealing
have the
with,
rest of this?
we're obviously dealing with multiple personalities here, and the angry one, where the orderlies have to come out, just expose him. He is now there.
Well, then you're confused.
I'm confused, and
Then
I
I'll
think
tell you what,
parents are
Jimmy.
parents are still confused as well. The schools
Oh,
in New
they're
York
not
City
confused.
tomorrow.
You're confused.
No, I think
Read
parents are.
No, you're confused. No, you're confused. They're not confused. It's the law.
Law.
Confused as well.
Read the law, and you won't be confused.
But Governor,
Go ahead.
following Jimmy's question, are the schools going to be open tomorrow?
I said very clearly that the law deems that the schools will be. The guy asked a very good question, because this is not like you really can't go to the next question, because somebody had to ask the first question, which is there school tomorrow? But no. The Dark Sith Lord now is now looking at the next guy. Well, look who else we have here. As if you thought you were walking into a press conference.
The schools are open by state law.
Oh, they're open.
Tomorrow, that's the question. I think Jimmy's correct in asking that question. I don't think it's obnoxious at all.
Well, I don't really care what you think. Of course, you agree with him because you're in the same business with him.
You're both whores. That's what he's saying.
I mean,
Both media
what-
people.
The two of you are in cahoots to ask me if the schools are going to be open tomorrow. Like, what? It's so weird. Why is he acting like that?
Right. So he said the schools will be open. Meanwhile, I have something that tells me the schools are closed tomorrow. But no, the schools are open.
The schools, by state law.
Oh, okay.
Well, what is the answer to your question? What is the answer to your question?
They've switched roles now. Now he's asking Jimmy if the schools are open. Well, I could see. Sorry, we've got a bogey here. I'm not. I mean, in a loving sense.
Hi, my friend.
Hi, Cyril. Do you want to listen to the show? Do you want to put these on?
Do you want to wear the headphones?
No. Okay. Well, we'll get back to Cuomo here.
Yes, you do.
You said
When does the state close the schools?
When you get to an orange zone, which you're suggesting could happen, but is not necessarily happening by tomorrow.
So then what are you asking? You just answered your own question.
We're asking, sir, can we walk into the building with kids tomorrow? Is what we want to know.
Is the bus coming to pick up my child?
The other week
But on
you
one
said,
hand- on one
Excuse
hand-
me.
But on one hand, you have granted Bill de Blasio the kind of oversight of his schools, and there are rumors that the number in New York City will rise about 3%, which would trigger closing of schools. Now, you have just said that an orange zone could be in the offing for the entirety of New York City, which would also close schools, but your number is 2.5. So I guess just the point blank question is, are schools going to be open tomorrow in New York
Let's
City?
do it.
The point blank question, once again, are schools going to be open in New York City? Governor, you're in charge of this ultimately. This is all you. Can you let us know what to do at about 6:38 a.m.? Do I drive the car to the school or do I not? Do I bring the kid to the bus stop or will there not be a bus coming?
Again, for you. Because maybe gets confusing over the days and nights.
Nobody's creepy. Nobody's creepy at all. Or the days and nights as you stand alone, beads of sweat making their way down your temple. You contemplate the future. You wonder about schools and trifle about such things. But I know the law. This, nobody's crazy, but it's okay. I know it gets confusing for you. Is this not a complete and total... Is this guy in, like, psyops? This is a reporter asking a question who's trying to write something down. And rather than the mad rantings, you know, in the extreme of consciousness of a man who seems to be certainly schizophrenic and having a meltdown, like I've only seen in movies. I've never seen a human being have this problem.
I can tell you one thing. It's certainly more insane than anything Trump's ever done in a press conference.
No, Trump is mean during a press conference. That's not true. That's not true.
Schools set their own, 700 school districts. They all set their own number. That's the number. Unless they fall into a microcluster.
Oh, great. Here we go. New wormhole alert, by the way, media.
The microcluster.
Sir, before we move on to microclusters, do I pack a lunch for Billy tomorrow? Really, I need to know that before I learn about microclusters or cycloflusters or the law or anything else.
Overrides the local rules.
So in this case, sir, let's unpack this. In this case, all the overrides would result in what, sir, for my school?
Yellow, orange, red.
Okay.
If it's Buffalo,
Well, if it's Buffalo, what?
I don't even know
Okay. All right.
the Buffalo closing number for schools. But the Buffalo schools close in that orange zone, right? Why? Because it's an orange zone and it's over 3%. Well, maybe Buffalo had a rule of 4%.
Well, maybe you could tell us if the schools are open, because we've been at this for quite a while now, and you notice nobody's interrupting you, sir? That should start to worry you. The fact that the press is just rolling on every second of this should be something that your communications people at this point should be pulling the fire alarm, because this is no good, unless, of course, they're so taken aback by this rabidly psychotic episode.
They're 5% or 6%. I don't know. Doesn't matter. If it goes,
I can't imagine. This is like every good psycho scene in a movie, like Captain
Yeah.
Queeg, whatever, with the marbles and strawberries and.
But yeah, where are his people? They should be gesticulating wildly from the back of the room, like, "Stop, sir!
Yeah.
Stop, please!"
This is a classic. Like I just applied for the Biden administration. I'm not going out there. I'm not going to make myself famous over this thing. Who knows? Could stab me with a microphone. I'm not. No, you can go out there. I'm not going out there. All right.
over 3% in an orange zone. Because now it's saying the decision isn't just about a school. It's about a school in an intensely infected community.
This is like the worst college class in the world to take. With the professor. I mean, the good thing is his back's to you a lot, so they can look at your friends and say, what is this exactly? And the bad, but he's in his own world completely. This is something.
With a family that's infected.
I have seen homeless people say similar things, and they rant on and on and on. Generally, people who.
And a candy store that has a high infection.
Okay. Okay, we're on to candy store. At this point, you're rolling, the orderly is rolling the person in the wheelchair down the hall. He's on to candy stores. That usually means that it's towards the end of the evening. He's getting more fatigued than usual. There's a little paper cup you give him with a few pills in it. It's pleated. The paper is pleated on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
You have to make sure that he has that and apple juice, and you give him the pills, and he takes the apple juice, but he'll try not to take the pills sometimes. So sometimes you may have to hide the pills in something, or just make sure he takes those.
Well, he didn't get them today. I can tell you that something went awry.
Infection rate. On a bus route that has a high infection rate. So the micro.
It's like the candy stores. Every business in New York, in Manhattan, like 3/4 have like totally been decimated and are closed. It's like the only like last holdouts are 4 candy stores, and they just heard that and like, fuck, that's it for us. It's great. Thanks a lot, Psycho. You had to, whatever weird LSD trip you're on had to include candy stores. Really? All we had was we were safe from your idiocy and the moronic mayor's idiocy. But no, there we go.
Clusters override the normal locally set school infection rate.
Why did you close the schools in
Right?
Erie County
Excuse
last
me.
week? You were over 3%.
Excuse me. Right?
Excuse me. I'm in a long and winding rant. And this could go anywhere. Just buckle up.
I understand the state law overrides the city's decision-making on this. I do.
And no, not city. Any
No, not city. Clarabithia. That's where we are now. No city.
local school district, so it just happened in Buffalo, any local school district in a microcluster zone.
You're right. You know what? Other than the fact that he's not slurring, these are the rantings of a late night wasted person
Right.
who's just on and is fighting to keep his eyes open. And then it could be candy stores, and it's microclusters. It's
Because that's now a highly infected zone. The schools,
the question was, are the schools open tomorrow?
Tomorrow, as in, we
Right.
really need to know, not like in theory something, like really just tomorrow, are they open or not?
Right, and
That's
that
it.
was 7 minutes ago now, and we're all on a long, strange trip.
can remain open
Okay. Oh well, then they're
in
open.
an orange zone,
Good. Then they're open. Thank you.
but
Oh.
they have to do additional testing.
Okay.
Understood. On a larger point, when you're talking about
On a larger point, are you insane, sir?
microclusters, those are obviously supposed to be kind of limited geographic areas. New York City is
We realize, sir, that you've taken a bag and a half of mushrooms just before you entered the room. But can we start to define some of your psychotic imagery?
obviously not a limited geographic area, nor is it a limited population center. How would that qualify as a microcluster? Why is that not just a regional shutdown?
Microcluster is not spatially defined.
Of course it's not. Of course it's not.
Microcluster
Dr. Timothy Leary,
It
of course it's not.
transcends the space-time continuum.
You should know that.
was as opposed to statewide action or regional action.
But is that not a region, New York City with 9 million
No,
people in it?
Long Island and Westchester would be within the region. So microcluster was, I get your point about the connotation of micro.
Well, because you said that there are 10 regions in the state.
I get your point about the connotation of micro. You thought it meant small. No. On Klector 7 here, micro means something
Could
totally
mean
different.
8 million people.
Yes.
One of those regions is New York City. So if you're going to shut New York City down to an extent with lesser restrictions under an orange zone, that is by ipso facto a regional shutdown, is
Well,
it not?
yeah, but
He's not going to like ipso facto. You don't say that to this kind of thing.
the micros to distinguish from statewide or normally region-wide. So Erie is not, we're not doing all of Western New York. It's a micro zone. We're not doing Chautauqua, we're not doing Cattaraugus, etc. It's a micro.
It's a microzone. So that's the answer to are the schools open in New York City tomorrow? I don't know. I would pack a lunch, I guess. We're not in New York, we're in Massachusetts. Some of our schools are open.
So, but our friends in New York, we don't know what
Mm-hmm.
to tell you about school tomorrow. So,
Right. It's a
good
microzone.
luck.
All right? It's a law.
It's orange
Just ask that.
zone.
So,
I don't
or
know.
unless maybe you can decipher some of this.
Remember when we did an orange zone and a red zone in Brooklyn and Queens? And we closed the schools? Don't you remember that? Okay, so what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're now going to override. We did it already. That's the law. An orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
Still confused.
Well, then you're confused.
I'm confused, and
Then
I
I'll
think
tell you what,
parents are
Jimmy.
parents are still confused as well. The schools
Oh,
in New
they're
York
not
City
confused.
tomorrow.
You're confused.
A lot of us are confused, Governor. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. And the thing is that just before they were about to leave, as the governor gets up to leave, Jimmy and everybody else there has more questions for him because nobody knows if there's school tomorrow, among other things. So, but the governor, as he gets up, then one of these questions perturbs him, and he starts to answer.
Schools, if the mayor said, okay, the mayor said 3%. If the schools hit 3% in the city, I expect the mayor, who has said 57 times, if they hit 3%, we will close them.
Why would he say 57 times when there's 57 Hines? That bothers me. That's way too close.
That is in conformance.
I'm asking for reaction to that. The schools will be closed in New York City.
Oh, I'm sorry, say that
The
again?
chancellor has announced to principals that schools will be closing temporarily.
Yeah, sir. During your hour and a half acid trip, we actually got the chancellor of the schools to answer the question, and they said they're going to be closed. So, can you respond to that now?
So the mayor's saying it hit 3%?
The chancellor has said that in emails to principals that the schools will be closed temporarily, yes. So I just wanted a reaction from you, the state's.
But that is what the mayor has always said. And
That's what the mayor's always said?
remember, it's not, the mayor said, when I say the mayor said, it's not technically accurate.
He may be drunk, actually.
That was my impression of the whole thing. I don't know. Either that or like this is my most possibly benefit of the doubt interpretation here, is that maybe he has been staying up late working on all this stressful COVID stuff so much that he's just like so underslept that he's like acting like he's completely high and out of it, which can also happen, but
Right. So he's lost his mind either chemically or organically.
went through a very formal process where I said consult with the parents, make them part of it, have web chats, have webinars, because you can't just by fiat say the school's open or the school's closed. It only works if the parents are willing to send the children. So make it an inclusive collective process. I mandated that the school district consult with the parents and have webinars, et cetera, and answer all the questions. So that 3%, the mayor said, in my opinion, in a collaborative with the parents. And that was the agreement. And
Okay, so that's the union agreed to
and
agreement.
if it is 3%,
There we go.
then I understand
I understand
exactly.
the mechanics of it, but my question for you is like the closing of New York City schools, what does that say about the state's broader progress? You have touted the state's progress for months and months and months. This would appear to be a setback. How do you feel about that?
Now, hold on. Have you heard this?
which thing?
What's about to happen?
I haven't heard this part. I don't think, unless
The reporter says this is the state's broader progress. This appears to be a setback. Listen.
I don't
now.
think he's gonna like it.
Listen now.
Okay.
You get a bit of truth from Cuomo here, and this is as dark as you could ever have thought it would be.
I mean, your microcluster strategy is not working at this point to
Ooh.
curb the statewide spread. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah. Well,
Are we having broader restrictions at this point? I mean, the cluster strategy has largely failed.
Let's not talk your characterizations, okay? And your adverbs. Let's talk fact. The whole world
Your
is going up,
adverbs.
right? The whole world. Every state in the nation is going up, right? So success becomes what? How you're doing relative to everybody else.
Really? Really? No. Success to me is, one, can my kid go to school? Two, are we all going to die? Well, it's relative to everybody else. Don't think of it like that. For instance, if the percentages here are lower than the percentages in Greece, but all of your family is dying right now, that's success. That's what matters.
Woohoo!
What are you doing this, looking at, taking this personally? This isn't about you. This is about me and my legacy and my books and my posters, which are, by the way, available just in the front hall. But it's about a comparison of how well we're doing. What if we lose 100,000 people, but Turkey loses 38,000, but population-wise that's better than them, then we win. That's success.
That's what success becomes. Success is not, are you defying reality? Excuse me. Are you defying reality? It's how are you doing compared to everybody else? We are.
How are you doing compared to everybody else? That's success, New York. Congratulations, New York, by the way. Excellent job hiring this guy. You know, thank God that Donald Trump is the only crazy New Yorker out there. But this guy, success. That's why he wrote a book. 30,000 died in New York. Sure, that's fine. But now probably 35,000. That's fine. Because it was a success. Because those percentages compared to some other countries, not too bad if you think about it. Success. That's why he wrote the manual on how to beat COVID.
Fourth in the United States of America.
Yeah.
Come to me with anything else that we're fourth in the United States of America after having had the highest infection rate in the United States of America.
That's damn right. Spike the COVID football. Now's the time to do it.
New Yorkers are doing a great job, and don't demean them.
Oh, yeah, that's what's happening here. They're demeaning them.
Yeah, the reporters
Unfortunately-
were trying to demean New
Yes.
Yorkers. That's what just happened.
Yeah, the problem is not that the reporters are demeaning them. It's just that he's depleting them. And I think that should be where success is defined.
I mean, I don't think anybody should be at this point in the game trying to take credit for their policies having beaten COVID or some other states' policies having killed all their citizens. Like, COVID doesn't seem to be super responsive to policy measures, frankly.
Oh, whoa. You haven't seen the successes in New York.
Because the entire world is going up. It's disrespectful to New Yorkers.
Entire world.
Of course they are, because they're going up on the world. If you're on the planet, the cases are going up. The question becomes, how are you doing relative to everyone else? And New Yorkers are doing better than everyone else. That is a fact.
Exactly. Especially if you're in the coffin business. You have never done better than right here in New York.
Not your opinion. Thank you.
Nicely done, Cuomo.
The whole world is going up, right? The whole world. Every state in the nation is going up, right? So success becomes what? How you're doing relative to everybody else. That's what success becomes. Success.
Could you have told us that before you ran for governor, by the way? Just in case, is there any chance? It is incredible that this press, and these couple of guys here today are good, the journal guy, etc. But how soft the New York press has been on this clown. This is an insane man. Now, here's what he says to get Jaclyn Cashman, who's my Herald colleague, who was my Herald colleague. She still is a columnist for the Herald. This is the thing that had her had her reach out or accept my harangue and
Your
talk to us.
constant harassment.
Yes. She got COVID. Jaclyn Cashman is an extremely extremely clean and antiseptic person. I remember when I first met her in 2013. She said that she washes with soap, etc., her wooden floors in her kitchen every day. I thought, Jesus, we do that, we do that like twice a year, maybe. And I've actually been in her car, and it's immaculate. She's got kids, like the car seats are immaculate. The thing is floor model ready. I mean, it's ridiculous. She is such a clean person. She's very much into the health of herself and her kids. She did everything right. Everything right. And then she heard Cuomo say this today.
And just to make it very simple, if you socially distanced and you wore a mask and you were smart, none of this would be a problem. It's all self-imposed. It's all self-imposed. If you didn't eat the cheesecake, you wouldn't have a weight problem. It's all self-imposed.
Holy Jesus. So that's why Jaclyn and I talked today. And Jaclyn, she's a good sport. We usually give each other a lot of crap. You'll see she comes right out of the gate firing at me here. But, oh, man, she is not pleased with this. And she is looking for heads to roll, starting with this moron in Albany, New York. Jaclyn, how are you?
I finally know what it feels like to be overweight, not exercising probably in 25 years. I know what it feels like now to be Tom Shattuck.
Wait a second.
Walking up a flight of stairs is actually cumbersome.
How? You're supposed to be in pain and apologizing to me about how cruel you've been over the years and begging my forgiveness. What is this BS?
I'm living in a private hellhole that I call home, and I'm taking you down with me.
In case, actually, you wouldn't know unless you knew, Jaclyn has the coronavirus, and she has had COVID for a couple of months anyway. And Jaclyn is somebody who's young and in shape, and she got whacked with this thing, and it has kicked the hell out of her. Jaclyn, if you could take us through, when did you first start feeling bad? First of all, you did everything right. When did you start feeling bad?
Well, let me just first take you back to March 11th, which was when my kids' school got shut down. And from March 11th until school reopened after Labor Day, I did everything in my power to do the right thing, washing my hands, Clorox wiping every surface, every doorknob multiple times a day, no camps for my kids, no indoor restaurants, no grocery stores. I mean, everything I was told to do, wear masks, don't let people inside your house, socially distance, everything that Dr. Fauci said to do. My friends thought I was obsessive compulsive and really over the top, especially given the fact that in general, I was healthy. I was quite active. I'm 38 years old, somebody that shouldn't be worried about getting COVID. Now, here I am now almost 6 weeks ago, and I get what you consider a run-of-the-mill slight head cold. And I thought, well, there's no way I have COVID. I haven't exposed myself in any way. I don't know anybody that has it. I just spent 4 days in a cabin in the middle of the woods with nobody around in Maine. Didn't even go to the grocery store up there, brought my groceries from Boston, got my gas in Massachusetts. No way to expose myself. And here I am saying I got this little sniffle. Well, I better get tested because my children are in school and you see signs everywhere. If you feel ill, get tested. And I remember calling my aunt, kind of eye rolling, thinking, geez, is this what my life's going to be like? Oh, every time I get a little common cold, I have to go and get a COVID test. This is ridiculous. And my aunt said, yeah, you're right. Don't even bother. And I said, it's something in the back of my head said, no, just do it. What's the big deal? And there I go. I get the test and I was positive. And it was such a shocker. My husband got tested. He was positive. We don't know how we got it. Can't point to it. And, he was sick for a few days. He got over it. I'm now going into week 6. I've had COVID, terrible symptoms for multiple weeks. I've had pneumonia now for the last 3 weeks.
Ugh.
I can't walk more than up a flight of stairs without dealing with, complete and utter exhaustion. I know what it feels like to be in your 40s or 50s, overweight, and, out of shape, Tom Shattuck. I can feel with you now.
These shots fired once again from you. That's why you got it. This is karma.
Wow, maybe that's a symptom.
This is
just
karma.
Being really mean to people.
See, and I've been nothing but sweet to Jaclyn. I never once made her walk up 7 flights of stairs and pour water all over herself just for a cheap photo op ever. So
Okay.
No, and not in front of like our boss's boss either. I mean, that never happened.
No,
luckily.
that would-
And luckily you didn't put it online for like 100,000 people to see either.
exactly. And the time I slipped you what you thought was marijuana in the studio, which is another thing that while you were pregnant, which was
While I was pregnant.
yeah.
That was actually the worst thing you ever did to me, actually, if we really want to go deep. But I guess we can ignore that for now.
For those of you listening, take my word for it. It was very funny. Jaclyn took it well. So you get it, and you have the sniffles. What happens physically next? When did you take the deep dive, and what was going on with you?
So again, it was originally just a mild head cold, and I remember, when I first got, I had, oh no, Tucker, give me a second, sweetie, and then I can help you. Sorry, my kids always need me. I'm sorry, sweetie, I'll be right back.
Our listeners are used
my
to
kids are really
Jaclyn.
sick of. Yeah, my kids are 5 and 7, and they don't take well to me being sick for all this time. Originally, it was just a mild head cold, but I'll never forget the first moment when I went to my computer and I logged in to check my results, and you see there, COVID-19 positive.
Oof.
And your heart like sinks for a second. You think, Jesus, like, how could this be me? No, this can't be right. Like, I don't party. I do everything I've been told to do. How can I? This can't be accurate. This happens to people that aren't safe, that are irresponsible. And what I quickly learned was that that's how everybody perceived me. It turned into almost like if you're a smoker and you get lung cancer, they say, well, when did you start smoking? And you say, well, no, I have lung cancer, but I actually never smoked. So it's an immediate element of blame that gets put upon you.
Yes.
And then you have to contact all these people that you may have only been in contact for an hour and tell them that they have to go self-quarantine for 14 days, that I just stopped their life. And then they make you feel bad because somehow I did something to them, when in reality, I didn't mean to do anything. I did everything I was supposed to do. I mean, even down to I had a mild head cold, I immediately go get tested. I stay out of harm's way until I get my results. Like, I followed every protocol.
That is
sorry, my
terrible.
kids are going again.
I don't know. Did you hear what Cuomo said today?
Sorry?
Did you hear what Cuomo said today?
So that.
Hold on, Jaclyn. Before let me play it for you right now.
And just to make it very simple, if you socially distanced and you wore a mask and you were smart, none of this would be a problem. It's all self-imposed.
You understand that, Jaclyn? It's all self-imposed. You weren't smart.
So when I first told you that I had COVID, I haven't had my reporter hat on in now quite some time, or columnist hat on, being sick. And I reached out to you because you are my friend, and I was simply just sharing, a personal thing that I was going through. And your first reaction wasn't even "How are you?" It was, "Will you come on my podcast?" And I thought he really is a piece of work, that one. And I at first was like legitimately angry at you, and then my husband reminded me. He's like, "Jaclyn, if the roles were reversed, you would do the same thing. That's why you guys get along, because you care about yourself and news more than you care about anything else, and that's your real connection." So I thought,
well, and he didn't blame you, right? At least he didn't blame you, right? So he didn't say, "Wow, Jaclyn, you're an irresponsible person."
Maybe I shouldn't have been so thrilled, actually, is what you probably...
Well, I guess I dug deep down into my selfish news soul and found Tom Shattuck and realized I could deal with this. But you've asked me multiple times to go on the show, and I frankly, like even right now, I'm winded talking to you. And I wouldn't normally come on. I kept on saying no. Every time you reached out, it was never really about my health. It was always getting me on your podcast. But it wasn't until what the governor said today that it sent me over the edge. And I haven't written a column about my COVID. I have so many COVID columns that I have been thinking about and want to write, but my brain isn't working right. Like, the COVID brain stuff is really real. I lose my train of thought. I can't write emails correctly. I haven't worked in 5 weeks for the Herald and also for my family business. And when I saw that clip from you today, it actually forced me into a coughing spasm because I got so worked up.
Oh, wow.
Because accusing me of being some fatso eating cheesecake and getting fat, and this is somehow self-imposed, what that does is further the narrative that people that have COVID aren't actually victims. The people that have COVID do have that scarlet letter on their back, and that's the danger. And that only furthers people from being honest about having it and coming forward and doing the right thing. So nothing Cuomo did today was actually help the public good. It further fostered this really negative, antagonistic environment between the victim of COVID and someone has to quarantine, which I get they're a victim as well. But my health has been on the line. I've been at Mass General 6 times. I have nearly passed out. I've blacked out. I haven't walked more than 20 steps in almost 6 weeks. I can't play with my kids. A lot of the times I can't even read to them because I'm suffering with migraines. I've had pneumonia for 3 weeks. They can't even help me because so few people have had pneumonia COVID at 38 that's healthy that they look at me and don't really know what to do with me. So I tell Cuomo that, I hope that maybe he trips into the street tomorrow and a bus goes by.
So that does suck. Because
it's terrible. And I agree with you 100%. I've told Tom before I wouldn't even get tested. I had a cold a few weeks ago and I refused to get tested. I mean, I didn't go to work or go out or go anywhere. I stayed away from people, but because exactly that, because people are so judgmental about it, and I frankly don't think they know what they're talking about, that the masks and everything, I mean, I think it probably helps a percentage chance, but it doesn't 100% guarantee anything. So it's not what Cuomo's saying. It's not, oh, just wear the mask and it would all go away. And I think there's a lot of that attitude of people saying oh, well, people who don't wear masks, people who do XYZ, people who go to the beach by themselves or don't wear a mask when they do this, that there's a lot of blame. Well, if they just did it, this wouldn't even be a problem. Then we could all go back to normal. And it's so wrong because, it's clear, I think, that they don't really know what prevents it or causes some people to get it and some people not to,
Yeah, and that's great, sweetie. The other thing is that they keep on pointing to the U.S. has gotten it wrong, and America has way too many cases, and that's the problem. And you look at other developed countries that are nowhere near as bad as America. What is the biggest difference between America and other developed countries in the last 6 or 10 months? We have been rioting and protesting more than any other developed country, whether it's a MAGA protest or it is a Black Lives Matter or it's an Antifa or whatever the riot is or whatever the protest is. We've had more gatherings using our First Amendment right, which is fine, but there are consequences when there are large crowds, and the large crowds are causing a problem. Or whether it's the victory of Joe Biden. These large crowds, no other developed country is having these large crowds.
Jaclyn, what was the worst part of the physical part? What was the most painful part of that?
The worst part by far was the cough. The cough was the only way I can describe it to you, was like being waterboarded. If I were to guess what that feels like, I mean, I just wanted to jump out a window. It was just, I would vomit. I would cough so hard. I would dry heave. I would cry. Like my eyes would just drain with water because the coughing was so violent.
Wow.
And the thing that actually makes me anxious thinking about this is that this whole time you're still got to be mom. I mean, how the hell did you handle that?
I mean, iPads. I mean, I can't, low expectations. Well, actually, this is where we probably connect, Tom. Low expectations for my parenting. That's something that you can probably relate with.
Correct.
No,
well,
I mean,
us
for
fat
the
people,
last 5 weeks, my personal expectation as a parent, my expectation of my children, had to be very lowered. It's basically just getting by. It's, you want to have Fruit Loops at 7 a.m. You want to have, a donut at 5:30 at night. You're supposed to have dinner. Fine. It didn't.
Right.
It was, whatever. I mean, the one thing that my sister came up with the idea is, every child wants to feel on some level empowered. They want to have some sort of level of responsibility. So give them something to try to help you. And so we made Hudson the king of making mom better. And like, he loved having that responsibility. And so he would
Nicely
always
done.
get me water and ginger ale. And Tucker was, he would be the king of the night because he's been sleeping in my bed since he was born, and he's 5.5, and he slept in his bed for 27 nights. So there's been, I guess, some positives in terms of their personal, you know, their personal responsibility of trying to be a little bit helpful, but you just let a lot pass at this point.
So, Jaclyn, it's kind of unusual that somebody in as good shape you are in young has this ailment with so many horrific symptoms for this long, and you're not in the hospital, you're at home, so you just have to have it suck day after day. I gotta wonder, with all of that, what that does to you emotionally. You and I both very infrequently, every other third leap year or so, would have a cocktail or two. But you can't have anything now, right? There's no escape through any.
No, you can't risk it.
You can't risk it because you think it'll kill you, or you can't risk it because why can't you have a martini and just let that put you to sleep?
Because what I've learned about COVID is nobody knows anything about COVID, and every doctor contradicts themselves, and it's very, great job, Tucker. It's very scary having something that doctors know so little about and can give me so little information. And it's not like getting like any other bronchitis or anything else. When you talk to the doctors and they look at you like, I don't know what to tell you. We just don't know. We just don't know. It's a very scary feeling. And so, and especially since for me, I've had so many shifts and so much unpredictability. And, you know, I would be fine one minute and then out of nowhere it would feel like I have like 4 knives in my head because of a migraine, and I couldn't describe it. So it was like, it wasn't worth risking having any alcohol that would set me back. Like, I want nothing more than to be myself. I want nothing more than to exercise. I mean, before getting this, I exercised 90 minutes a day, 7 days a week. Now I'm like I mean,
same with Tom, but
yes, same here. I'm up to.
We have that in common, Tom.
Yes. Plus, I've been doing Buns of Steel, which you know. But Jaclyn, by the way,
but that's terrible. It's it's really sobering, and it's sobering because you did do everything right, and like, I know everyone hates that idea that like maybe there's some things in the world we can't control, that like we can't control whether or not we get COVID. Because everyone wants to believe that you can just like put on a mask and be safe and be okay and like blame other people if they get COVID, but it's scary, and it's scary to say like we don't know how Jaclyn got it, and all this terrible stuff is happening to her, and we don't know why, we don't know where it came from, we don't know how to fix it. Like, that's scary and that's awful, and I can't imagine what you're going through. And the kids, I relate to the kid thing. That's like the worst part to me, because it's like they don't stop needing you and wanting you and being all over you. So
I've cried so many times because I can hear them downstairs and they beg for me to do something with them, or they'll be outside and I look out the window and I would do nothing more than want to be out there and play with them. But like, that's the blame thing, which I think is so important. And back to Cuomo, what he did today, how he really did such detrimental damage to the community and to the victims of COVID and to the society at large right now that already has enough angst, and everybody's looking to blame someone for something right now. It's easier to believe that I got COVID because I messed up. It's easier to believe that if I stopped eating, cheesecake, that I would be skinny. To make that would be an equivalent analogy to somebody that doesn't eat a lot of cheesecake, that actually knows what you put into your body actually matters, and that decides your waistline. Somebody that actually is quite health conscious and eats organic and tries not to have too much dairy and does all those right things and probably drinks too much booze on occasion. But the reality is, what he did today is so hurtful. And I think people still have their head in the sand and would still love to believe that somehow Jaclyn messed up. And she's not telling because she doesn't want to be honest. somebody can sleep at night easier believing that than really being honest with themselves and say, Jaclyn really did nothing wrong. And the one thing I do know is that I'm now resentful that I've spent 7 months of my life protecting myself and my family only to turn around and get it and now be suffering for 6 weeks. I wish I just was licking doorknobs back in March and would have been done with it.
It's like what I didn't think about is having to call all those people and tell them we were together. Like say, it reminds me of like having to call people and telling me you have herpes.
Well, and you have to like give their names and information to the state. Like, so, I mean, my friends would murder me if I gave their phone number to a contact tracer to call them to say like someone you've been in contact with has COVID and for privacy reasons like we can't tell you who, but blah blah blah. Like my friends would be so mad if I gave their information to the state contract tracers. Like well, it's mortifying and people are so mean.
I get diagnosed on it came in like Wednesday late at night, but I opened at like 3 a.m. on Thursday, and I start getting emails. I start getting phone calls Thursday afternoon from the state. And I'm like, how does the state know that I had COVID? When you test positive for COVID, that gets handed over to the state.
Right.
And they don't stop calling you until you answer. And I all of a sudden became quite sick within 48 hours. And I didn't feel like chatting with the state about me and my COVID because, frankly, the first 48 hours, and I think this is what actually got me to become pretty sick, I spent the first 2 days dealing with crazy moms asking me all these questions about what I may have not done, to get it and, where I was and what can I do this and do that, answering 8 million questions. And that exhausted me of all the people that I had contact and all the questions I had to answer over and over and over again.
Before we let you go, you have to take a bath to breathe, you said, right?
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Before we let you go so you can open your lungs so you can breathe, what is it? You were a quasi-religious person at one point. You were part of some culty thing. But what does it do for you, for your faith, that Trump got this and was done with it in 24 hours, and he's like 75, and Chris Christie is 511 pounds and got this and was done with it in a week?
I believe that God gives you what you can handle.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great.
Get a few
Jaclyn.
drinks in her and see what she really feels.
She's tougher than Trump and Christie. That's what it is, Tom. See? And that's why Tom hasn't gotten COVID because Tom gets total like man cold, like gets one sniffle and is laid up.
To the point about the faith, it's like honestly with the faith component of it, like I literally go to bed at night praying that my family doesn't get this. Like, and I thought many a times, like, why do I have this so bad? Like, and just, it's all the unknowns. It's all of the, how do I go from 2 weeks of the worst flu-like symptoms of my life? I'm better for a day. I think, oh my gosh, I've turned a corner. And then the next day I come down with pneumonia. It just, and all the symptoms are constantly evolving and constantly changing. And the second I think that the worst is behind me, the worst is in front of me. So it doesn't take away my faith in God or society or any of those things. If anything, it makes me more compassionate and, just try to just be thankful for my health and look back on days where I was able to work out really hard and feel really strong. I will say that on a vanity standpoint, my face is so skinny, it's upsetting because nobody can see it.
That is important, actually. Women would probably want to know if they lose weight.
Yeah, because I think there's a no appetite thing along with the can't smell or taste anything.
I never lost my sense of smell or taste. And, I haven't drank alcohol in almost 6 weeks. So that makes a massive impact.
So you look like $1 million.
What?
You look like $1 million. There's a silver lining.
Well, I don't know if I'd call myself $1 million, but I would say I don't look like a booze bag. My face is all bloated.
Well, I wouldn't know how that is. Jaclyn, you can find...
No, I know. You wouldn't have that.
You can find her on Twitter at Jaclyn Cashman. She won't be tweeting because she's mostly dead at the moment. But she will be back, and obviously you've got to write a column, Jaclyn. There's no... I mean, what you said, these are insights that I never thought about, actually. And so we appreciate your time. Thank you for letting me finally successfully exploit your debilitating illness. And when this is all over, I look forward to having a cocktail with you.
I hope so. Nice talking with you too, Alice.
Nice to talk to you, Jaclyn. Feel better.
There she is, Jaclyn Cashman. Nice. I'm glad that she's actually living for the time being, and it was good to talk to her finally. And it took Andrew Cuomo. So thank you, Andrew Cuomo, for facilitating this interview with Jaclyn Cashman. Alice, 1, 2, 3, 4. Tell the people what you wore.
Our Twitter is Burn Barrel Pod, Facebook.com/BurnBarrelPodcast. You can also email us, burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. Find us at Tom Shattuck's Burn Barrel on YouTube. We also just started a Parler account, so you can find us at Burn Barrel Podcast on there as well.
Remember when we did an orange zone and a red zone in Brooklyn and Queens, and we closed the schools? Don't you remember that? It was 3 weeks ago. Okay, so what are you talking about? What are you talking about? You're now going to override. We did it already.
2 more
That's
hogs got
the
fever.
law. An orange zone and a red zone. Follow the facts.
I'm still confused.
Well, then you're confused.
I'm confused, and
Then I'll tell you what, Jimmy.
Parents are still confused as well. The schools
Oh,
in New
they're
York
not
City
confused.
tomorrow.
You're confused.
No,